They tried to ruin my wedding day. I had already planned for every single one of them. My mother's sister, Claudine, has operated her entire life on the principle that other people's happiness is a resource she is entitled to regulate. Weddings, in particular, bring something out of her, a restless, acquisitive energy, a need to insert herself into the architecture of an event until her fingerprints are visible on everything. When I got engaged to my partner, Roel, the first thing Claudine said was that she had opinions about the venue. I smiled and wrote down the day and time she said it in a small notebook I had started keeping specifically for this purpose. I'm a methodical person by nature. My professional background is in risk assessment. I identify failure points for a living. My own wedding was not going to be a failure point. The guest list included 11 members of my extended family who had, at various points across the previous decade, demonstrated a willingness to subordinate my well-being to their own comfort or amusement. Claudine was among them, but was not the only one. There was my cousin Bertrand, who had given a speech at another family wedding 3 years prior that had reduced the bride to tears within the first 90 seconds. There was my aunt Solange, who had a well-documented habit of arriving at events with uninvited guests and expecting accommodation. There was my mother's childhood friend Vera, who had been insisting for 2 years that she deserved a seat at the head table on the basis of a closeness to my mother that my mother privately described as mostly Vera's interpretation. I invited all 11 of them. I did this deliberately. What none of them knew was the seating architecture I had constructed around them. Each of the 11 was placed at a table positioned near an exit, served first, and assigned, without their knowledge, to a specific member of my wedding coordination team whose sole responsibility for the evening was to monitor, accommodate, and, if necessary, quietly manage whatever that particular guest decided to do. I had written individual briefing notes for each coordinator. Bertrand's note was the longest. Claudine made her move during the cocktail hour, which I had anticipated. She approached the venue coordinator with a set of printed alternative centerpiece arrangements she had apparently produced at home and laminated. My coordinator accepted them warmly, complimented the lamination specifically, and placed them in a folder that went directly into a bag under the welcome table. Solange arrived with 2 people nobody had met. They were given a small table that had been kept in reserve near the garden entrance, set beautifully, stocked with the full menu, and positioned just far enough from the main reception that their presence created no disruption whatsoever. Solange later told someone she had specifically requested that table for the view. Bertrand stood up during the open microphone portion of the evening. My coordinator was beside him within 4 seconds, leaned in, said something I had scripted 3 weeks prior, and Bertrand sat back down with an expression of mild confusion that lasted approximately the remainder of the evening. I do not know precisely what was said to him. I had written the script but told my coordinators they could adapt it as needed. Whatever it was, it worked. Vera did not get a head table seat. She got a chair with a clear sightline, an attentive server, and a small handwritten note at her place setting thanking her for her decades of presence in our family's life. Signed by my mother, which my mother had written willingly, and which Vera photographed and posted online before the first course arrived. Roel and I danced to our song in the middle of an evening that went precisely as I had designed it to go. Not because nothing went wrong, small things always go wrong, but because I had mapped the terrain in advance and placed the right people at every pressure point. My mother cried during the ceremony. Genuine tears, the uncomplicated kind. Claudine told someone at the reception that she felt the centerpieces could have been improved. Her coordinator agreed thoughtfully and refilled her glass. We have been married for 11 months. The notebook I kept during the engagement sits in my desk drawer. I have not needed to open it since the morning after the wedding. I like to think it is resting.